Yeah, yeah. Never not, never under God, never ever, I'm forever on. Check my weapon on, check my repertoire, don't check me on. Let's just check involved. I've been feeling like I'm next to God, next to God, next to God.
Welcome to the Brothers in Time podcast. Right, this is going to be season 3 called Guardians. Right, I'm going to be joined with Sanchez, Hudson, and myself. Right, so we're going to have some rules for this conversation.
Rule number 1. A person who is saying something obvious should be assumed to be saying something subtle until proven otherwise. Rule number 2. A person who is saying something wrong should be assumed to be saying something counterintuitive until proven otherwise. An example is a whale a fish? At the lowest level, morphologically speaking, if it looks like a fish, it swims like a fish, therefore it's a fish. At the mid-level, it breathes air and has live birth, so it's a mammal. But at the highest level, it reverts back. We are bracketed on Darwin's phylogenetic tree between lampreys, which are clearly fishes, and coelacanths. So we don't always understand if we are sophisticated or unsophisticated relative to somebody's point of view.
Me and you were talking the other day, Hudson, about a DV call you had. And you kind of briefly described it to me, and I made a joke. I'm like, oh, that dude has no coping skills, huh?
Correct. Yes.
But then you said something about allowing a part of yourself to take control. I would kind of like you to say it again because that shit was hilarious. About the baby.
Oh, yeah. Like just saying that at some point you'll cross a bridge where you just let your toddler self take control of that situation. Yeah. Well, it's one of the main questions that I've been asking almost everybody, man. Like some of the things you guys have said recently have just kind of activated those thoughts again in me. But I don't really want to pull away from what we're currently talking about. But realistically, it's the question of like, what era are you living in right now? What is this emotion stemming from? Is this your childhood self, your teenage self, your army self, your professional self, your future hopeful self? What is this? What person are you tapping into that's reacting like this?
Oh,
why are you being a baby?
Boy,
and that goes back to the limbic and the autonomic nervous system. Mm-hmm. You're creating all of that stuff is essentially memories, right? Those systems are creating memories, and they're either episodic or spatial, right? They're either related to the place that you were at, or they're related to the emotional frame of reference that you're working from. So the capacity for instance, the gentleman that you were dealing with, right? He was in a DV incident. He punched his wife and threw a bunch of shit around the house, right? He was unable to express his emotions, and he allowed his emotions to take control of him and behave in that manner. But when you go back to if you can go back to my computer screen, when you go back to this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Security and safety, belonging, intimate friendships, relationships. And we'll go over this again in a different podcast, but back to my camera. You essentially need these things to lead a happy life, quote unquote, objectively happy or fulfilled, right? But if you're not able to express that you even need these things, you're never going to get them. That's the first issue. And the second issue, and I feel like the more fundamental one, if you're not even aware that you need these things, you're never going to gain them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh man. It's a can of worms about, I've been bottling these conversations about human nature, and I've been waiting to talk about that with you guys. So I think our next podcast should be about human nature. When the toddler in ourselves comes out, and these, I don't want to say animalistic, but these biological traits that we have that you understand really well, Danley. Holy balls.
Well, and the goal I have for this, right, is we've all read The Republic, at least partially, right, the book by Plato. And in that book, he tries to prove why justice is good for justice's sake. And a lot of what he does is he takes these analogies of government systems and who the men are. And now that I've given you this macro of direct, organizational, and strategic, you can see that what he's talking about, he's separating them into those categories. He may not have used those words, but he's using those categories for sure. The geometry is the same. You know what I mean? So then from there, you can derive a whole bunch of information about what it is that we as people really truly want. Not what the appearance of what it is that we want or what society has been telling us that we want. Because when you're talking about Afghanistan, and that's what we've been talking about, you have a generation. And what is a generation from, we'll say, from 1940 to 1960? Right? This is a generation. We'll say that, right?
Okay.
20 years from birth to life. This is that generation, or if you want to call the generation 20 to 40, whatever. So this is generation one. They have all of these beliefs, right? These beliefs or macros of behavior of what they think right and wrong is. So you can compare Afghan, and at the end of the day, everything can be compared 1-to-1, right? Afghan and the United States. So what were we doing versus what were they doing at the time? You know what I mean? And then when you talk about us specifically, this was like civil rights, women's rights, all of this stuff. But right before this generation, right, very recently to this generation, you would be within 1 or 2 of people who owned slaves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that belief of like that being slaves are okay is only like 2 generations removed.
Yeah.
So then there's 50% will give a generous believe it's okay and 50% don't, right? Whatever the actual percentage is, it doesn't really matter. But then we continue on up and up, and this percentage of it's okay starts to get less.
Yeah.
Like where children are being raised realizing because we're not projecting onto them what they should be, right? Because you don't see a baby just hating another baby because of its skin color. You don't see that.
Yeah.
You don't see that. And then people will be like, well, basic human nature in tribes is to do that. Well, no, that goes back to safety and security. You don't know that person. It has nothing to do with the color of his skin. You don't know him. Stranger. That's what it is. It's that germ theory. It's that thing from outside of your terrain that you're trying to make an enemy. But then you keep going up and up and up. What this would end up looking like, right? And sacred geometry is very close to my heart, but you guys are pretty intelligent when it comes to electronics. But this would be a DC current. And this is, oh, fuck you.
That's your alternating.
Right? But then on that same spectrum, you have phi. And it would look like this. And you have Fibonacci, which is the sequence of growth. A plus B equals C, right? 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5, so on and so forth. So it starts off really ugly, and then it starts getting closer and closer and closer and closer to phi. To perfection, right? So generationally, we have these things, right? Like slavery. We know ostensibly that slavery is wrong. We know that now. So we can take that from this current that would have been this generation down here and put it into the DC, the direct current. And this DC is a mathematical representation or a placeholder for government.
Okay.
Or laws. And this is climate and culture, right? This is the C2, like AC. This is the climate and culture that we're living in. And it continues down this path. And that's why people say history repeats itself. But I like the analogy more that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Like it's similar.
Yeah.
Right. It's close. Right. But we're taking these things from the past. Right. And this is conservatives want to hold on to hard fought battles and the things that we've learned from our past. Right, that we don't want to let go of because it got us to where we are, right? And that's a very admirable thing to do, right? but progressives want to grow and change and make things better. That's an admirable thing to do, but you have to be able to do them both.
Yeah.
Right. And you can talk about that on a direct level or an organizational level and a fucking strategic level.
Mm-hmm.
And on a direct level, what that looks like is that conservative, that snake that's wrapping its fucking self around the knife, needs to learn to let go of the fucking knife that's killing it.
Yeah.
And that would be a progression, because inherently, I think it's fundamental that the survivability, like living, is what we all want at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
For living sake.
It's human nature. You want to conserve your own life or your existence. Yeah.
So every lesson that we've learned throughout the generations is being put into this DC power line, and we're supposed to be extracting things from the AC. So you can't be, and this would be the x-axis. So this would be you, and this is, I don't know, the future, I guess, at the present moment as you go down this line, right?
Yeah,
so you're literally looking at it straight forward, and it's left and right of you. So if you go too far to the right, you're missing all of the stuff on the left. So when you're too conservative, you're missing these opportunities, right? There's an opportunity cost for only being one way. And what that is you lose all of the benefits of being this other thing too. And that's how you grow. It's like, the capacity, and that's what infantrymen, that's what we fucking do, right?
Yeah.
When you do battle drill 1 alpha, which is now 2 alpha, and we go on to an objective, right? We have a plan, but the plan never goes, right? That's the difference between practice and theory. But that's why one of our tenets is flexibility, right? The ability to process information, and as this information is coming in, I can make a decision, right? That's both going to increase the efficacy of my unit, but the survivability. So if I just continued on with the original plan and said, fuck all of the things that I'm seeing in front of me, that would be dumb. We would call that person ignorant.
Yeah.
And if you take that away from that analogy and put it into real life, like, just because this is how you've always been doesn't mean that's how you have to be, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Holy balls. Wow.
That's really my point.
Yeah, no, that's a really fucking solid point, dude. Oh, wow. Yeah,
so I know it's relative to me, but it might be relative to more of the veteran community or those who have left military service to go into reserves or guard. And I'm trying to find out more or less, Danley, if you relate to it as someone who's still mostly active in the military, correct? Like, you're still, for the most part, active in that setting. I feel like I know for me, like on this pyramid that we're looking at of all your human needs, when I initially got out, my line stopped at my safety needs. The whole belongingness and love needs, like, that ceased completely. I was like, no, the friends that I had then, I will never have again.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. There's nothing beyond that point. And so many veterans get held up in that.
Yeah.
What I feel like that couples with is what you brought up earlier with self-worth. So I know that recently I was able to cross a bridge that I didn't view myself as not like unwanted. I view myself as irrelevant. And that through therapy and speaking with old friends and speaking through that emotional plane. Why is that? I think a lot of it has to do with the upbringing of the military, that if you go down, someone else has got that job. You are only worth it to me when you are fucking breathing. That's it.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
And then you couple that with all the other bullshit that you witness, that you're like, okay, so my purpose here is only fulfilled when I'm fulfilling it. Other than that, I'm not there. It's a concept of, if party A exists and you're person A, what happens when you say no? So they invite you to the party and you say no. My knee jerk is that, well, they're just going to invite person B.
Yeah.
And that's a bad mental train to be running down, man. Is to be like, no, if you don't show up, they're just going to get the next best equivalent, which is what the military teaches you from day one, man.
Yeah.
And so I know that I'm a huge advocate for military veterans going to therapy and learning that it's like, hey, man, if you're person A, you are still person A, regardless if you show up or not. You don't just get replaced. This isn't the same environment.
It's a different experience.
Something.
Yeah,
Whatever
no.
that is. Esteem needs, dude, that's like way beyond the idea of like just being able to like look at somebody and explain to them, hey, I've got an emotion right now and I need to backtrack this and find out what this root cause of this bullshit is that I'm going through at this time. And to base it back into what you said already, Danley, the masculinity aspect, you're taught from day one as a man, and especially in the military, shut up and color. Do not express that. Do not say a fucking word. Because if you do, God, man, like you guys remember how many people would go on like suicide watch? And they were like being pseudo legit. Like you're in a garrison environment, and they're like, hey man, I'm not good. Everyone's like, pussy! Like immediately, nobody is on their side, dude. And like you have to put someone on their rack and watch them all night, and that person fucking hates that guy now, whatever the case is.
Dude,
the expression of self, because you're not allowed to be unhappy. Well, you can be unhappy, but you're not allowed to be sad. You're not allowed to be emotional. You're not allowed to be downtrodden. You can't think
you can
like
be angry and irritated.
That's it. That's where your emotional spectrum pegs left.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it. To the right, you're allowed to be as moto and fucking excited and hyped up in the day you won. But where it stops on the left is you're allowed to be pissed off, but you better keep raking, you stupid animal. Like, you can't put it down. You know what I mean?
No, you hit it right on the money, especially because, God damn. I had an experience. Oh, sorry, you going?
No, man, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Oh, you good. But yeah, I mean, this kind of hits home because, I had a good friend that, I deployed with. We lived right next to each other, all this shit like that. But anyways, when he came back and he told everybody that he was not doing okay, nobody took it serious. And just talking to him, the night before he killed himself, I was talking to him and, the dude was not okay. And he told everybody he was not okay. And he's been on suicide watch for like a week or two. And anybody who went in that room to watch him had that same mentality, oh, this guy's a bitch, or he's copping out, or you know what, suck it up, stop being a pussy, this and that. So what ended up happening, he had an NCO once who had that same mentality of, you know what, this guy's just being a bitch, he's not actually going to do it, this and that. So he had a doctor's appointment and he left 5 minutes early. And in those 5 minutes, he left. The next NCO comes in there, opens the door, the dude's hung himself and he's dead. Just because so-and-so thought, what is 5 minutes? The dude's not going to do it. And as soon as he had that opportunity, dude grabbed his bed sheets, fucking flipped his bed horizontally or vertically, whatever the fuck you want to say. He put it on its side, just high enough for him to not stand up and just limp his legs. And the dude wanted to die because he hung himself from a height where he could have easily just stood up. And that just came to show that this guy was scrutinized this entire time and kind of seen as a coward and treated like he wasn't actually going to do it. He went so far as to voluntarily die, where he chose not to stand up, and he died in the method that, he elected to die.
Not to prevent any further progression.
Yeah.
But something that successful military people hold on to is that nobody is a tomorrow man. And that is a beautiful mental concept that veterans need to embrace. Is that instead of saying, oh, well, I'll stop eating like this tomorrow, or I'll stop smoking cigarettes tomorrow, or whatever the case is, whatever your goal is, successful people within their military career say right now. They'll throw the whole fucking pack of cigarettes away that night. They'll stand up, they'll eat right there. They'll do their 20 push-ups before they go to sleep. Whatever the case is, that is an awesome mental space that I know I adopted from a military setting, is that if this needs to get accomplished, or if there's an intent and a reason why it needs to be done, start now.
Yeah. Fucking facts.
So you guys just lit off some lights for me, because there was a point in time where I had like 7 friends within a week commit suicide. And it was a real hard time for me, because I was going through a very dark time myself, right? And I'm not going to do like a whole woe is me type shit, but we need to make a bifurcation here between certain things, right? So when you're talking about this kid, this you, right? Whatever your friend's name was, right? This is the suicide ideations, the SI individual, right? we don't know what he's thinking. We don't know what he's feeling unless he expresses it. And if he's incapable of expressing it, we are never going to understand it.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that it almost sounds like re-education when you say it. And I don't want to sound like a Nazi, but what it is it's nobody's known what these things are, right? Carl Jung has tried to like do psyche models and like conceptualizations of the self. And then some people have tried to make derivatives of what he was doing, like what's his name, Jordan Peterson. But I want to push Jordan Peterson away from a lot of military men, because what he does is he presents these arguments in the way that we already know them to be, right? Just do it. Just get up and do it. You can do it. You got this. Like, just get up, and that mentality that you were talking about just quitting, right? Don't being a tomorrow man, which is a great mentality to have, but it's already present in the military.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's already present in the army, dude. But when you go back to Carl Jung, you can step away from Carl Jung and go to a man named Alan Watts, right? And neither one of you guys have kids yet, but with my daughter who's recently been born, I've been like on a super scientific method with this little girl, bro. Like, just observing her, son.
Yeah.
Like, you'll sit there and you'll watch her, and she's observing fucking everything at all times because it's all new. It's literally, if you were to think of your consciousness as this, and this is everything that you've perceived, right? As a child, this thing, right? And we'll go into a little bit of quantum physics for a second, but imagine this is a black hole, and this is the singularity, and this is her consciousness.
Yeah.
It's gaining shit. It's just pulling it all in, and this thing is growing and just growing and just growing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And she's retaining
perhaps, but it's the bits of information that are coming in that's important, because when then you transfer that over to an adult, there's a point where some adults get to, and this is my issue with the woke community, is that I'm so woke. By saying that, you're saying that there is no more information that I can learn, that I already know everything. And we, in this belief of, do you think that something exists outside of your awareness or your knowledge? As in, do you believe that there's a potential that there's something that you've never even heard of, could have imagined, or anything?
Absolutely.
And if you think it's possible, you're still on receiver mode, right? But if you're only on transmit mode because you're so woke and you fucking know everything, that's why I made those rules in the beginning, is because you will no longer listen to people to gain something from their knowledge. You're listening to respond, to teach them.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, bro. Yeah, I think I'm so sorry, I didn't cut you off, bro.
So with my daughter, right, when you're showing her a new color, or like this new way this object fucking works, you're teaching them physics, like watching the ball drop, right? And when you think about, we're all kind of nerdy, right? So we know Gundam, we know Transformers, we know Pickle Rick, we know all of this stuff. So when you imagine that you have an avatar, this is a shitty body drawing, right? This is your avatar, right? This is your body. But then you have the observer, the thing that's in control of this. So when Pickle Rick, when he projects his consciousness into that pickle, that's what I'm talking about. So that's the observer, is Rick, and the pickle is and you see how he builds like roach parts onto himself. But when you're watching a baby, they're like twitching, and they get frustrated with their body because they know what they want to do. They want to pick this thing up and do this with it, but their arm isn't doing it right, and they get pissed off. So they're literally learning how to control this fucking Gundam suit, right? This fucking mech suit of meat and bones and shit.
The body's a vessel.
You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm kind of getting at? So from there, right, the question I have for you guys, right, I want you to like say something in your mind. It doesn't matter what the fuck it is. Like create a shape or something. Are you the shape or the word, or are you the thing that is aware of it?
Aware of,
yeah.
So
I know where you're going with this, bro. I'm already fucking having Intellectual
So
orgasm.
this is you in your head looking in on whatever object it was that you created, right? So this would be the observer in like an objective sense. But the observer is also capable of being the thing that is moving, right? When you're in a memory, when you're watching, like think about a memory and go into it, right? You are in that memory and there's motion, there's movement. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you are simultaneously, you can be the objective and the subjective observer. And then to talk about quantum physics again, light can be a particle or a wave, right? When you go to measure it is when it becomes something else.
When
Right?
it's
When it becomes
observed,
one or the other. Yes. So when you're in that thought pattern or that thought train and you're imagining your memory or whatever, you can pop out of it and watch the thought go by. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. So I say all of that to go back to your friend here. So he was having reality, right? Like outside of him it's essentially proof positive that what he's believing is true.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When everybody's calling him a bitch or a pussy, or that's the way they're interacting with him, that's how he already fucking feels about himself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not how we need to be interacting with these people. You see what I'm saying? And when they are in this modality of these thoughts, right? Are you your thoughts? We just proved that you are the thing aware of your thoughts. You can't control what thoughts come in, but you can control what thoughts stay. Mm-hmm. You can tell yourself, no, that's fucking wrong. I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not this. I am not that. But you need to be given the power to do that, right? Because a lot of what ends up happening, right? If you imagine for a second your psyche has two people, right? Especially if you have depression issues or if you have childhood trauma or if you have any trauma in your life at all, you have two voices in your head. One of them wants the best for you and one of them wants the worst. And the fucked up thing is they both sound the exact same and they are you. And it's the words that they use that tell you who they are, right? So in relation to the feeling that you get when you hear the word, right, somatically, which means in the body. So like the actual feeling you have to this sentence that you're saying to yourself tells you whether or not you should listen to it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, bro.
So this is a question that I've been asking a lot of people that I work with recently, is that when a problem or a question presents itself to you, how many voices do you hear?
Oh.
With answers. With answers
to them. And you're talking to cops, bro.
Which they all give 1, 2, most I've heard is 3. I can't tell you the last time I had a fucking 3 solution thought in my life. It's always 8, 10, 13 different ideas. I try for the longest time to see every side of a fence. And now I'm like in this position where I can't. It's almost a lack of decisiveness until I just rectify what is the most paramount decision that suits my needs, whatever that is in the moment.
Yeah.
Most individuals I've spoken to do not sustain that same. I don't even want to call it a dilemma. I think it's more beneficial than it is harmful. But the range of thought that can occur, the bandwidth of choice that's presented within you.
Man, you guys and your key words, son.
But that goes directly back to about my daughter when your consciousness just keeps getting larger. So expansion is the key. And what is actually expanding? So expansion, another word, is growth. But what are you growing? It's access to information, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, go back to the very full circle, back to the very beginning of this conversation with the Taliban and the literacy rates in what they're allowed to expand their minds with. They were fucked before they even started.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And this model or this thing that we're talking about, even most Americans don't fully understand this. That's why we have so many conservatives that are fighting against growth and so many progressives pushing against things that they actually need to hold on to because they have some some daddy issue, right?
Yeah.
They hate their dad, so they hate Jordan Peterson. Well,
Yeah.
I hate to tell you this, but everything you see that you have an issue with, everything that you have an issue with in the outside world tells you more about you than it tells you about me.
And there's a concept of this,
Facts.
dude, and I can't say it's the Freudian? Yes. Sorry, cop. So that whole concept is a beautiful, beautiful thing to face, and realize that the reason why you find things so upsetting on the internet or something cringy, that's a great example of when you see someone do like a fuckboy face and you're like, ugh. Like you don't like when they do that. It's because more than likely when you boil that to the root, you're asking, why don't I have the confidence to do that as well?
Oof. Oh
but
my
you
God.
fucking project just hate towards that object. Like, that guy's a fuckboy. I hate that. It's like, well, you can see how many likes he got on that, bro.
Yeah.
You can see that bitches like it, dude.
Yeah.
All you're mad about is that you don't have the confidence.
Oh, yeah. And you'll hear them finesse them. They're really good at talking to women and stuff, like these guys do everything you wish you could do in that realm right there. I get it.
So what you're talking about is like the reaction to this outside event. You know what I'm saying? So you have you, right? And this goes back to the allegory of the cave, my friend. So you have you, which is the sun in that allegory, or the light source.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have your ego, or some belief you're holding about yourself that is being projected onto what you would consider objective reality. Right. So it's really about you. It's something about you that you're projecting. So when I was bringing up that thing about fighting, it's because I felt like a bitch. I felt like I had something to prove. That's why I was doing this.
Yeah.
That's why I was allowing this thing to affect me. Or, there's another, this is the paradox here, right? You have twins, exactly the same, as close to perfection as you can get with the sameness.
Mm-hmm.
They grew up with an alcoholic father, right? They become adults, and one of them is an alcoholic and one of them is not. But when you ask them why they didn't, or why they became what they became, they give the exact same answer.
Mm.
It's because I saw my dad do it. So you have two options, right? And we're going to go back, and I need a little bit of, support from you guys, but we're going to go back to binary, and we're going to talk about bits, right?
Okay.
Bits of information. So you have zeros and ones, and it's just a state. It's like on, off, is not. So shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, but they both can exist, right? They're both have the potential to exist. It's which one you fucking pick. So when we go back to talking about veterans and feeling like they don't have purpose, right? Well, what are you picking as your purpose?
Yeah.
What is the kill the enemy, or learn from everything?
Yeah.
What was your purpose? And if this is the one you want to hold on to, I'm sorry, bro, but you're gonna be upset. And if then that means to me that you're choosing to be upset.
Yeah.
And it's this that I believe a lot of people, they think in binary. Things are absolutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
essentially, the way that I was raised, right? This X time frame, this belief system, this is how I view everything of. I'm projecting this onto everybody else and saying that if they don't do it this way, they're wrong. If they don't do it this way, they're wrong. Right. And that's what the Taliban is essentially doing.
Yeah.
But we have people in America who are doing the same thing, but just aren't going to the extreme. And I would consider this a maladaptive behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
totally.
Damn.
Because when you go to this third level of belongingness and love and needs, what you're talking about is intimate relationships and friends. So you're literally talking about a connection to another human being. And if you don't have any connections to any other human beings, that is a lonely fucking world. And I've been there.
Well, and it's almost dark. And it's almost the first step in psychological analysis that it becomes sacrificial, that you have to give something as well. You're not just taking, you're not just finding ways to preserve yourself. You're also giving that intimacy to another human being, which is
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Very difficult because the
you're
vulnerability
right.
immediately counteracts the safety need. immediately. So
Hold on, keep that
for
there.
all intents and purposes, you're opening the gate. You're opening your gate to somebody else and saying, "Are you sure you want in here? Because whatever I have locked away in here is either good, bad, or indifferent. It's your choice." And this becomes the argument that the majority of individuals, or at least who we're speaking about, that some product of people is in a binary train of thought. Bringing them into a quantum train of thought is going to be the difficulty of an intimate relationship, so that no longer are we binary, we're both. We are both on and off depending on what we are trying to discuss.
Exactly.
And that's where conversation can lead to outcome. But it's that quantum ability
I
that allows it.
fucking love Danny. If you could do me a huge favor, can you do that little on and off thing you did earlier? That little draw just
Binary.
yeah, just
Zero
a binary. Just give me one binary. Okay, sweet. So you know what makes computers intelligence, right? The way we measure how good a computer's processing unit is how many bits of information can it process. Now, draw a bunch of fucking, give me a bunch of, no, fuck that. Do exactly what you did with the on and offs, but do like 4 of them. Boom.
Or do you want words?
Exactly what you're doing. Yeah, exactly what you're doing. Boom. Now circle the fucking one pair.
This one?
Just right there, just those 2 right. Yep. That's a bit. People like to exist in one state where it's either on or off. Now circle a bunch of circle the entire thing, and then circle each pair. So a computer that is considered smart can think in different states simultaneously. Think in bits, dog. Don't exist in one state where you only believe in one way of thinking. It's okay to be a conservative in one aspect, and it's okay for you to be progressive in another. You can believe in the Second Amendment, but you can also believe in renewable energy. You know, don't be stuck in one state. And I love the fact that you drew this, because it shows a visual representation that it's possible to think in different states. You don't have to be stuck to one.
This is the
This
argument.
goes back to what he was saying.
Exactly, bro. I just wanted a little
Toddler.
visual.
Man,
Yep.
drunk.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is one of the main issues with conveying to veterans that are leaving the service, is that your fucking career for 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years was binary. The whole thing. You didn't pass your PT test, that's a fail. You didn't qualify, fail. You got promoted, pass. You wore the right uniform, pass. Like everything you did was on, off, on, off. So it's very difficult to convey to people who have lived in such a regimented wrong right world that there is gray. There is a middle ground of these objects. I know that for me, that was one of the hardest mental bridges I just recently was able to cross. I was 25 before I realized that people don't think like me. I swear to God. I was 25 years old, dude, and it was a come to Jesus moment with me that I was like, oh my God, dude, like this isn't always what everyone sees. And like, it's as simple as saying like, wow, that man over there is objectively attractive, or that woman over there is objectively attractive. You've heard that sentence 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're wrong. Because the person next to you can be like, no, dude, like that guy next to him is objectively more attractive, or that woman, whatever it is. And that dude, that's the example I'm giving, because that's what woke me up to it. That I was like, no, like Bruce Willis in the 80s was hot, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the argument here. No, he wasn't, right? Someone can disagree.
Facts. But what you guys are talking about this binary, right? And I want to talk a little bit about machine gun theory, right? In a machine gun theory, you have the 3 respects. You have respect to the gun, respect to the ground, and respect to the target. And for those of you who are familiar with physics, you will understand that the gun is the mode, right, or the method in which something is being interacted on. The ground is the the relationship between that and the target, right? So this just goes back to basic physics, 1, 2, and 3, right? You can't, so if you're going to talk in a void, right, in complete blackness, complete absolute nothing, and you just have something in there, how do you know it's moving, right? You don't. It has to have something to move relative to, right? There has to be two things for you to perceive motion. And then that goes further into anything that can be said to measure time is actually a measure of motion. So when we're talking about these things, about person to person or person to institution or whatever, it doesn't matter. What is the mode? What is the gun? The thing that's shooting this vector at the target. So in the vector would be the ground in this, but it would also be the process in which we are interacting with the other thing. And when you're talking about machine gun theory, the target dictates how your method of engagement is going to be, the way in which you are going to engage this target. But you have to understand what it's called the disposition of the enemy or the target, right? And disposition means the way in which it's arranged or how it is, not how you want it to be, but how it is. So when we're going back to that first step, second step, third step, that brother, when I tell you I have difficulties with every fucking day, I promise you, validating your lady's emotions is that you understand her disposition, you know where she is, right? Your method of engagement needs to change relative to what target you're trying to hit. And if what your target is making her feel better, telling her that what she's feeling is wrong is not going to meet your goal. So you need to change the way in which you are in approaching the situation. And a lot of men feel like that's changing themselves, which it's not, right? Let go of your pride a little bit and you'll realize some things.
Need a safer bank. I've been saving change. I need some space. Chatting in my face. Get from around my way.